All right. Hello, everybody, to finally, after 3 episodes of 42, finally episode 43 of the SPNatI podcast. Hope everyone's doing all right. I am spnanon, as usual, your host, and with me is nmasp, my co-host.
Hello,
Go
everyone.
ahead and say hi.
I'm nmasp, the co-host. Good to be
With
back.
some work to show for himself this time.
Finally, after like a year of working on the same project, I have something on test.
So we have one guest. That's why the episode number has increased finally. We have different guests. Rip to Corky and Wibbly. Instead, we have only one guest, but he is perhaps as prolific as the two of them put together. I'd say probably more so, actually.
That'd be me.
He's been with the game longer than either of us. PivotalCog. How you doing?
I'm in good. How about you?
Pretty good. Who have you made for newer viewers?
It's a pretty long list. First, I made Mia. Then I made Palutena. Then Pit. Then Mahiru. Then Coco. Then Larshell. And my most recent work was Elisa.
Strong lineup. Personally, I'm a big fan of Elisa's legs.
I like Elisa. Honestly, like Larshell is my favorite, not like explicitly nmasp fate character in the game, but it's like Larshell is like the one that like you don't like the one you don't expect, and then you're just like, oh yes, this is for me. Whereas like Amy is just a smart bomb, so it's almost cruel in its efficiency. But
Larshell's a really fun character to write.
I love Larshell. She's so cool.
Oh, is she gonna get some updates?
Yes, but we'll get to that in a bit.
Nice.
All right.
Let's see. Well, of course, I think this is maintaining our pattern so far of only allowing row 1 people on the podcast, because Pitt has consistently been at the top of the roster for a long time.
Are you bad enough to appear on the SPNatI podcast? Get good.
Mean, Corky and Wibbly, right? They made Emmy and Megamine, who were also on the top.
We gotta get Phonebox on here next time.
Pretty much. He's the next one down.
Yeah,
dude, I'd love to have Phonebox on.
I would love to have Phonebox on.
Are you listening?
He seems like a cool dude.
Yeah.
And before we go any further, I should say, Elisa, best Gen 5 girl.
I agree.
I've never played Pokemon, so I remain just happy that other people are experiencing joy for these characters.
I don't think Solitaire has played it either. So because he's old like you, so he won't make an editing joke.
Solitaire and I are gonna we're gonna be fucking boomers together, and you can all just deal with it. I'm just gonna go write Natsuki lines to Miko until she hits page 1.
Natsuki is from a game that's even more of like a Zoomer experience.
She's so cute though. But and speaking of, she's also who Pitt has her epilogue with. That is the source of much gnashing of teeth. So
oh yeah, so you are the dangerous duo responded for 1,000 players NTR'd.
More or less.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel good. I think that was the right decision. I also had like nothing to do with that epilogue, which is kind of amazing. This is back when Underscore was still alive and making content.
Yeah, it was mostly the brainwork of me and Underscore.
It's a good epilogue. Go play it if you haven't.
Oh, Underscore. Amy update when?
He has a new model and everything. It's just like, oh, god damn it.
Could he at least put that out there so someone else could update her?
God, can you imagine Amy updates in this year, 2020?
Oh, well, we don't mean the Amy that nmasp likes, by the way. We mean the one with the rifle.
Make her even more of a must-target character.
God, I just like...
Not to be confused with the Amy Rose that's soon to be on test.
God, we have so many fucking Amy's, but like, I just imagine like Amy Doki Doki with a gun. And it's just like... yeah, what the fuck you say about spiders?
What kind of gun would Amy Doki Doki have?
Cog, what kind of gun would Amy Doki Doki have?
There's got to be a gun called the Spider somewhere.
Probably. I'm not a huge gun guy, so I couldn't tell you.
Widowmaker alt skin for Amy. There we go. Just a sniper rifle with her fucking glasses, because that's what you do. It's like if you can't see so good, you get a gun that you have a lot of distance between you and your opponent.
Dude, I put Amy in nice tight bodysuit. Now we're cooking with gas.
I think Napsu is for Halloween too, but
well, after this extremely snappy start,
yeah. So anyway,
we're already getting into our fetishes. Let's maybe try to steer this back onto the highway here.
The first question is, how tight do you like your latex bodysuits?
Very.
Go ahead and open for it. All right.
So I guess that counted as our intros. So current projects, PivotalCog. Since you are planning on making a bit of a comeback soon, why don't you go ahead and say what are you working on?
Don't call it a comeback. He's been here the whole time.
In the shadows.
Pivotally.
Well, I haven't really worked on it much, but I'm working on a bit of a strong dialogue update for most of my top characters. So, Pit, Palutena, Larshell, maybe Mahiru. I plan to get that out sometime in tentatively October.
Ooh, nice.
That should be pretty easy. I plan to get it up to 69 lines.
Nice. And just stay there forever?
For a while.
That's like a respectable ambition. It's just like, when did you stop developing when my character got to 69 lines? It's just like that or 4,200. Either of those numbers is just completely acceptable.
It'd be a strong legacy.
I just like Mia's like the actual cap for Mia's lines is when she hits 420, 69.
Why not 69, 420?
Spananon, if you write like 100,000, like effectively 100,000 lines of dialogue for this character in this game, I'm just like I don't know whether to be like impressed, terrified, or slightly disappointed. Because like, do you ever like sit down and like look at how many lines you've written for this game and be like, wow, that's like a novel, and then just like feel a little bit like, wow, I've accomplished so much, but then also feel like, wow, I prioritized very effectively in my age bracket.
I don't feel like I've wasted my time at all.
I don't either, but at the same point.
I don't know, it's fun. If it's fun, then it wasn't time wasted.
People definitely know who Maya's name is now.
It's true.
It's the least I could have done.
So
people like, oh, I'm gonna watch Vandred. It's like, I didn't make the show, right?
You've probably written more dialogue than the entire show at this point.
Yeah, you may as well have to be quite honest. So yeah, those are some current projects from COG. I'm personally really excited. I miss you writing. Baby, come back from the other server.
Are you sure you want to stay at 69 just for the meme? Because you are that close to 7,000.
It'll be for like probably a week.
At this rate, Jesse's going to overtake him finally.
Dude, Alpha Man's like secretly kind of a machine because it's like you're like, oh yeah, who has like the most lines in the game? It's like, oh, Maya, Pitt, and Jesse. She's gunning for it. She's good, yeah.
Oh yeah, just skip right over Jura and Revy. I didn't pump any lines into them.
I mean, what more needs to be said? They're both in like the 10,000 club.
Not quite. Revy, not yet.
Yeah, okay, 20 more lines. Like you can bang that out in like 30 minutes.
It'll come soon enough. But
yeah,
I just think it's funny that I hit 7,000 with Maya. I broke that barrier like 2 years ago, and still no one's done it yet. But Pitt and Jesse are both on the precipice of doing so.
As for me, I am currently working on Marinette and Adrien. They just hit test. I'll go a little bit more into that in a second, but I'm also going to be doing some, now that they're on test, I'm going to be going back and I have a bunch of art updates I'm going to be giving to Akko and Futaba. I have handed off to If I May, who will be my successor on that project. Mike,
the guy who's currently making Yusuke from the same game.
Yeah. There's a few people that offered to take over Say, but Mike's vision for it's the one that I'm most enthusiastic about. So he's working on her right now. So
who?
Say art update soon. The rest of my characters.
Who's working on Say?
Mike.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But then some Natsuki updates. I got an art update coming for her, which should give her.
He's not going to give her a gut, right?
I hope not. But it's out of my hands at this point.
Say who's like a couple years out of retirement.
Give her a beer belly.
Oh God.
The nano machine stopped working.
Now I have like one fear. But yeah, Natsuki update's coming. We'll see how much I like doing epilogues, and maybe people will get their wish, but I would not count on it because I hate doing epilogues. And yeah, so then I've got Marinette and Adrien, who are finally on test after me procrastinating and taking like 2 years to do it. I did it.
I feel like a big sense of accomplishment when making an epilogue, but like it is pretty hard.
I don't, because I always just like feel kind of stupid, because like the tools are pretty good, but like I'm always at the standpoint, it's like, well, why don't you just put sex in the epilogues? I'm like, because like I'm not that creative. Like I can ship.
The Kisuke really is the choke point there.
But
It's so hard to like make something that looks really dynamic, like a really dynamic
Mhm.
sort of setup for that scene when they have to face forward all the time.
That's more or less the reason why Palutena and Makiru haven't gotten their epilogues updated yet.
Yeah, like it takes a really long time to kind of pick up steam with an epilogue because first you got to write it, then you got to somehow make all the art assets for it, which is more complicated than it used to be because you have to cut it into like a bunch of animatable parts. So you have to really know what you're going to do with those parts.
On that note, I think like Napsu did this with like a streaming chan model from Beta or something like that. There's like Viz has some sort of like Kisuke tool on like his like branch of Get Good that's like a disassembler or something like that.
Yeah, I really need to give that a shot.
Yeah, she said that was pretty good, but then again, it's been like 4 months since Streamy Chan's last update, and we still don't have that epilogue. So calling you out, honey. Yeah. So I think like
What's her secret project that's holding her up?
the RP server, but
Rip.
I think like actually it's been like a lot of like abortive attempts at like different other projects. I know like she is trying to do like a Diva update, but she needs to wait to see the art for Overwatch 2 just because she doesn't really want to keep doing updates for that. I think Orphea is still waiting on a model from someone, and then T91 like has been like a kind of a back and forth between her and I, but like with Marinette and Adrien on test, she's been spearheading the project and just doesn't really. In her words, she's like, I don't really know if this character is like the fit for SPNatI that I expected it to be, so I'm gonna focus on other things and try and like get on row one with Diva is I think her current plan. I don't know if it's gonna work, but you know, I think it's a good shot.
What is this obsession with being on row one? Why does she want it so much?
She wants to be
Prestige?
Yeah, prestige, and she just wants to win. I think like she's just very competitive, but
Oh, that's admirable.
she's just very competitive, but not always very good. So I'm gonna say this, and she's gonna listen to it and get mad at me. But you know, hey, if it propels you to succeed, just
This is why you have to record in the closet.
this is why I have to record in the closet.
So I don't have too much to add to current projects. Pretty much the same as always. Maya, Jura, and Revi. We are taking them the distance. I'm slowly catching up on targeting situations and generic lines and all that, and model updates and epilogue improvements. I spent a lot of time recently just targeting like Tharja shrinking Jessie's breasts because that's a thing that she does.
That's such a specific like interaction. I get it, but it's so specific.
Yeah, but you write something that specific and the lines just flow out of you because it's really easy. You know what I mean? Like you could just Tharja's a bitch and you're being all pathetic. You target like an old lady who's like twice your age and all this shit. And there's even more specific lines like if she's already done it to Jura.
Oh,
That's why I wrote so many.
Tharja is like, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see her get some updates.
It would be nice. She has really nice art.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like just in general, it's like it's this ever swinging pendulum between like it's okay to be done with a character and like there's a lot of characters I really like that I wish got updated more, but here I am with like 10 characters, 11 now under my belt, and I just can't.
You got to make it an even dozen.
God, what did I even do for the last character? What's like, who could I just like upset the most by like making
Alia?
Oh God, I could make all yeah. Oh God, that's like suffering. It's just like
Just have 3/4 of a table, just you masturbating.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I think like Alia would be a good choice though. But like it's like Alia, for those who don't know, is another character in Miraculous Ladybug that Solitaire can put in. She's cool. I just think that it's like I don't want to add any more franchise characters to the Miraculous cast, just because like if someone else does it, I'd be really excited to like target them, but I don't want to like orchestrate more like conversations because like Marinette and Adrien's already a lot, and I don't want to like have like another layer on top of that because
that's
like
why
targeting Amy with Natsuki was like bad enough, but then like self-targeting is like another step, and then like self-targeting with 3 characters is just like fucking impossible. Like it's just not worth it.
That's why I don't want to make any more franchise mates.
And it's also like people get like super up your ass about it. It's like, well, they're not like talking and they're saying things during these conversations. I'm just like, well, just like
you got to be perfect.
Yeah, just deal with it. I don't care. Like
because like if you know say Wibbly, you know, he made Megumin, if the you know he could target Union all he wants, but if they like stop writing Union, then it's just like, oh well, whatever, can't do anything about that.
Yeah, I have a feeling Union is kind of like I have a feeling Union's going to be up for sponsorship soon, but I have a feeling she's going to get Starfired.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that is in character.
Oh, that's so mean. Oh, that's the. Oh.
It's not wrong, though.
Oh.
Doesn't have any friends.
Oh, that hurts, but it's so accurate. So sure.
Her creators ran off from her.
It's just like, sorry, nerd. We want to do real projects like Doki Doki Literature OCs. I think I'm going to be boiling a pizza soon, though, because
oh yeah,
because like apparently like Cavendish has like volunteered to become the next Yuri.
He's the curse breaker.
I don't know. Like it's like I won't believe that the curse is broken until I see Yuri Doki Doki on testing in front of me, and I have a boiled pizza in my stomach.
Yeah, but basically her art has now been like completely done by Thursdays, who posed well.
Oh
Amy
Jesus!
As well. And
oh
so
Jesus Christ!
And then she's got like 200 lines now, which some are placeholders. But basically, she's technically like 100 lines from being on testing and being real.
Oh Jesus Christ! Who's going to be like the next cursed character after Doki or Yuri?
That's hard to
Cog,
say.
Cog, what do you think? Who's going to be the next cursed?
On the topic of Konosuba, I think Aqua might be.
Yeah,
Aqua. I guess that's a good choice. We would need Darkness on there for Aqua to be like the last remaining.
I mean, I've heard she's close.
Mm-hmm.
Aqua or Darkness?
Darkness.
I've heard Darkness is close. Yeah.
So that might be a good choice, just because like she's even more recent than Doki Doki Literature Club, and she's like the main. She's like the most popular girl that would like round out a group, but she's not there.
Yeah, gosh.
So that's probably the right choice. I'd say 2B, but we're kind of like too far removed from Nier Automata now.
Oh yeah, Zeus and Velvet are working on 9S now.
Oh, good.
So I'm optimistic.
Is Zeus going to turn him into a manly man?
He's going to be. His model will be improved substantially, and that is all I will say about that.
He's gonna have like a square jaw. He's gonna be ripped.
It's just not 9S comes up and slaps her girlfriend's ass. What do you do about it? Except it's like 9S, but like super jacked.
It would be like Solitaire. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say like SpongeBob and Patrick in the wrestling ring, but they're really ripped?
Yeah,
they have like no legs. It'll be like that.
I like how we just like yell at Solitaire like he's on this call with us.
I really appreciate being able to just yell at the editor and say, make this joke work.
It's really nice. Cog, yell at Solitaire. Tell like have him do your bidding, or like we're gonna get back to like the actual recording of this. It's just gonna be this long scrolling text of Solitaire like being fed up with our shit. But Cog, go ahead, try it. Call for Solitaire. See what happens.
Hey Solitaire, you're a great person. And that's all I'm gonna say.
Cog, say fuck.
I refuse.
I got him to say. I think I got to say Cog. I got Cog to say fuck when Akko made it onto test. I think.
Fuck,
Was that
fuck,
vacation?
shit, bitch, cunt, asshole. That was my contribution.
Thanks, spnanon.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
before we go any further, since we've been waiting on Marinette and Adrien for a long time. I mean,
oh,
you even like kind of took Marinette off briefly for like 2 months, just
yeah,
to get her just right, even though she was like a pillar of the game. You made that move,
I did.
so now they're both on. Where do you want to go with them, the mask? Like, where do you want to take the project? What is your thinking behind like how you've kind of organized and like structured them? Like, what do you want to do with them?
Yeah, so the interactions are not yet complete. What I want to do next is I actually don't think like Adrien doesn't respond to Marinette like when he's like losing, I think, at all. And that obviously that needs to change. I think Marinette responds entirely to Adrien, but the reverse is not true. I want to make sure that the next step beyond that is to make sure that they have lines for each other when one of them is forfeiting or is in like post forfeit, just to kind of make that interesting. Then once that's done, I think I have a few options, but I'll probably take a break from like targeting with the two of them to do some more targeted lines, just like externally, and also to start kind of combing through Marinette's old lines, because like every line on Marinette right now, her something like, gosh, how many lines does Marinette have right now? Marinette has 2,800 lines, all of which are new, and her old version had 3,500. So there's a lot of lines there for me to kind of piece through and move on to her new model, and also have Adrien react to. So there's just like a lot of work to be done, and it's gonna take a while. Then I think at some point what I'd like to do is have basically a set of generic dialogue for when the two of them are in the same game. Just because I think the big problem with like having characters that are like canonically in a relationship is just that that can be kind of a deal breaker for some people. But I want to make sure that like if you're playing with the two of them together, you get a different experiences if you're playing with them separately.
Now, are they canonically in a relationship or just in your age up universe?
By the time they are the ages they're supposed to be for the game, they should be. So, yes.
From what I understand in Miraculous, I haven't seen it, but isn't there just kind of like a Twilight thing where she's got like two hot guys going for her?
It's like so the conceit for Miraculous Ladybug is essentially that
every 14-year-old girl's dream.
Yeah, basically, Marinette is also a superhero called Ladybug. Adrien is also a superhero called Cat Noir. Cat Noir is in love with Ladybug. Marinette is in love with Adrien. Ladybug does not like Cat Noir. Adrien does not think of Marinette as anything more than a friend. So as you can imagine, there's a very convoluted love square, which only gets more involved in season 3, where they add like 2 more people that like the non-transformed versions are like dating. So it's just a lot. There's just a lot going on. It's very much like, do you like shipping? This show's for you. It's like crack for shippers. So
I don't like shipping.
If you don't like shipping, it's you can probably ignore it safely. But
to
anyway,
give you an idea of how I like shipping, Vandred like it kind of looks like a harem, but literally like the first girl he meets is the one who wins, and it's basically clear that she's going to win the entire time.
First girl wins. Yeah, so basically that's kind of where I want to go with them. I think like having more targeted lines is always going to be fun, but there's just kind of a lot of maintenance work that needs to be done first, and especially with like backlogging Marinette's like old lines onto her, it's something I'm not super looking forward to, because I think like a lot of those lines are like the generics are just not salvageable. I think the targeted lines, there's some that are good, there are some that are not, but it's just kind of a question of like which ones I want to move and which ones I don't. And honestly, it's because whatever ones I move, I also have to target with Adrien. So we'll see. I think like in general, I'm going to try with the two of them, like to have like a targeted line for Marinette, a targeted line for Adrien, then targeted lines for when both of them are playing together. So that's kind of what's upcoming for them. I'm not going to be doing an epilogue. I'm not really going to be doing anything super fancy. They might get a dual forfeit though, which is kind of as close as you're gonna get. But
that's kind of how I was with Maya and Jura. Like, I'm not gonna make an epilogue just for them. Here you go. Here's them touching each other.
Yeah, I think hopefully people enjoy playing with the two of them together, and it does something that the game doesn't do elsewhere. But have fun.
Who is on top for this co-forfeit?
It depends on who loses. So the way that I have it set up without like implementation is that if one of them gets naked when the other is already finished, it will lead to a dual forfeit, with the person who has not already lost being the subject. Any other person helping them.
Interesting.
So it's going to be, you have to fully finish off one of them before the other one gets naked for the dual forfeit to continue. But then it's going to be like the one that's actually losing.
I can relate to you saying that, like, oh, in the generic lines, they're unsalvageable. I've been revising, Maya's generic lines, and I've tried. I usually have that train of thought too, like, oh god, shitty. This whole case is shit. I try not to just wholesale delete them because I don't want to be left with nothing. So I always try to just like, is the topic of this line at least salvageable if I wrote it a different way?
I just started entirely from scratch for Marinette just because.
I'm probably going to do that for its dialogue update, because one thing that was said in the feedback poll is that he's kind of lacking in the generics department, so I'm going to try and beef that up.
My recommendation is actually just get some filtered lines, because I think, I've always been a big fan of those, and that they're a big future-proofing component.
I may allow filtered lines for my future characters like Larshel and Elisa, but never really went back and gave them to my old characters, so probably end up doing that.
I think that's a good use of time. So yeah, that's kind of Marinette and Adrien. It's definitely like Marinette was the first character I ever made for SPNatI back in 2017.
The first character ever made?
Yeah, the first one I ever made. So
the first one you made under the nmasp alias.
Yeah.
Formerly Dranky.
We don't talk about the before times of Dranky. Dranky King may make a return to SPNatI.
Oh god.
We'll see. Maybe when like the time has come, I'll just be like, and the nmasp is over. I'm gonna let the fire fade, and I'm also gonna give Captain Falcon 3600 new line
and a bigger dick.
And a bigger dick, because that's what everyone wanted.
So yeah, I'm really excited. I still need to test them out, but I'll be happy to give like more detailed feedback in the next cast. I mean, Marinette's butt pose obviously looks pretty good.
Oh yeah, special
Can't
thanks
go wrong with a butt pose in well, I guess it's latex. It's magic latex.
God, holy fuck though, Horse Cat. Thank you. Like this would not be possible without you, and also for Phonebox, like for doing Adrien's posing. You can also tell that like Marinette has still some questionable posing, so people feel free to report that it's just like, nmasp, you're retarded. Please fix this, and I will promptly decide if I want to do that or not based on my mood and the general difficulty in doing so. But yeah, so that's Adrien Marinette. Maybe I will make it an even dozen. What would my 12th character be? What do you guys want me to do? What would you want me to do for a 12th character? Who should I write for funsies? Maybe next Masquerade I'll just like pretend to be retired and show up and do a character with people.
Well, I know you're not super into anime. What's a good like Western Rule 34 character that people really like?
Oh, I know who I could do. I could do like Terra or something like that.
From Teen Titans?
Yeah, just and add it to the list of characters not to be updated.
You'll make Pat sad again.
Such is life.
Are all Teen Titans characters destined to be made and then abandoned?
That's the plan. When there's trouble, you know who to call.
All right. Well, we've spoken at length for about our current projects. Are we ready to move on?
Let's continue. All right. So
Marinette and Adrien were sort of the big testing additions, and we'll have more to say on them next time. But with only one guest this time, and without too many new additions, since we finally caught up on all the testing and main roster characters for 2020. This should be a bit of a shorter cast, but nmasp very graciously came up with some discussion topics for us to go over. So we will briefly touch upon each of them.
Mm-hmm. And the reason behind this choice is basically crowdsourcing questions is great, but it also leads to things like the same questions getting asked over and over again. And if I have to like look at the letter E, or wouldn't it be fucked up if there were two dudes on the moon and one took a rock and killed the other one,
and one said E to the other one?
Yeah, I would just lose my mind. And I think like this also lets us cluster theming a lot better too. So
is there any facet of internet humor more impenetrable to boomers than just E?
No, because it's like that SpongeBob episode where they're like, "What's funnier than 23, 24?" And they just like
20.
lose their. That's like Zoomer humor. So what makes for strong? So the first question we have for the topic of 3 is what makes for strong interactions as a writer. And when I asked this question, I meant like when you're writing a character, whether it's like a new one on test or you're working on a character that's very established, what do you think makes for like a compelling, interesting interaction versus one that you're just like, yep, this one sure does target me? Cog, why don't you take point on this, especially because like you do have such a diverse background in targeting and an array of characters with which to speak.
So there's a few things that can make for strong interactions. I think one of the first ones is how it connects to the character themselves. Like, if it's an interaction that can flesh out a character, like, it's fine if it's just exposition, but if you can go like beyond the canon and flesh out your character fully through the dialogue with the other character, I think that makes for a very strong interaction and makes them more memorable. I think another thing is in a more meta sense, where if both the author and the author you're co-writing with are both fully fleshing out their characters and enjoying it, I think it makes for a more enjoyable experience both as a writer and as the final product.
I definitely think that's really insightful and really, really effective. Do you have anything else you want to kind of add to that, or just sort of riff on whatever's about to come out of my mouth and spnanons?
I might add some more later, but for now, I'll just add my commentary.
I think I think you have a lot of really good points there. Just from my perspective, I think what really makes a strong interaction is like, it's almost like when the dialogue writes itself, but it's because like someone goes in a direction that's interesting and not what you expected. Like Corky has had this comment like a bunch of times about like how Emmy's best lines are the ones where it's not like really talking about like her legs. And I think those types of interactions are really fun when it's just like two people talking about something that's like they have in common despite their differences. Like I actually really like this set of interactions between Sakura and Revy that are about like some stupid 4-Coma comic that like I don't even think is canon, but it's like Sakura and Revy talking about like BDSM or something like absolutely like ridiculous, and like it's like crossover stuff like that.
There's a Black Lagoon omake where Revy's like a magical girl, so she kind of looks like she's like dressed up like an idol, but she doesn't have any magic. She just solves all her problems with guns.
Well.
And that's what Sakura's referring to.
That's so like I don't even think Napsu's seen Black Lagoon. That's so
Sakura's just like, oh my god, Radical Revy-chan, it's you. So we just kind of wrote it into the canon of like Revy used to be like a stage girl that kind of did like BDSM stuff as a dom, so maybe she dressed up as Radical Revy-chan for a few times.
I think Tomoko and Kazuma do something like that too, which is also interesting. But like I think like strong interactions are ones that aren't just like characters your characters find attractive, but ones that they have like weird things in common with. They just have like a strong reaction to. Like I think like strong interactions kind of rely on like strong emotional reactions to things that transpire, because it's like you're like, oh, you're taking off your clothing name is so fucking boring compared to like, hey, you stupid asshole, get your shit together. or whatever, right? Like, I think those tend to be really, really interesting and really easy to engage with. But I also think that it's like, you can't be too prescriptive with like what you're writing. Although, I don't know. I just think things like, you have to like, things that exploit the crossover nature of the game are probably the most exciting for me.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah. Or anything that kind of like gives them a launch pad to just kind of talk about themselves in like a deeper way.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff that like fully plays off the strength of both characters and is completely natural in doing so is some of the strongest stuff you can get from the game.
Like for instance, if you look at like clips from the original Poker Night at the Inventory, it's all stuff like Tycho has a sexual fetish for giraffes and talks about how he wants to rub their powerful muscular necks. And like Heavy talks about his time where like his family was sent to the gulag.
Oh my god.
And just shit like that.
Yeah.
So any time like a character can just kind of launch into something. I mean, that's the kind of like heavier character stuff I would probably put like towards the like earlier on, you know?
I'm just jerking it thinking of my family in the gulag.
Where it's not like it's not going to kill the mood because everyone's just kind of taking off their shoes and bracelets.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a part there's a part where like Emmy and Maya are talking about, like Maya asks if like Emmy lost her legs in like an accident or if it was like congenital. She basically says, yeah, it was like an accident, but it really changed my perspective on things. And Maya actually says like, oh yeah, that happened to me once where basically I got in a crash and like nearly died and I was like in a coma. Which is not something you'd put towards the end when your dick is out. But I think it's fine to put it towards the beginning.
That's you.
Even if it's a little unrealistic for them to open up that fast, I think it just, creates like some good character moments.
It's like, I like CBT, cock and ball torture. Oh no, like psychotherapy. Oh.
I think one thing that really helps, there's a couple things that help like make for strong interactions, and it's definitely like kind of what we've been saying already is go beyond the surface level. I think what makes like a really weak targeted line is like if you know nothing about the character, it's okay to kind of start off with maybe a superficial observation.
Right.
Like I think Maya's line to Adrien at first, just like, "Oh, you wear skin tight clothes. I didn't expect a man to do that." But I'm not like, you don't want to keep harping on the clothes the entire game, because then that's boring and it's just kind of like a generic line again.
Right.
And just kind of like a generic line. You want to make it like some kind of take that only your character could have, and I think that'll naturally have the conversation go in really interesting places. You don't want to like think about like, is this something that probably a lot of people have said to the character? And could you make it a little more unique to your character in some way? Like you can target Galatea and be like, oh, your skin's gray. Or you can be like, oh, your skin is gray and you're like a robot. Are you like some kind of experimental organ golem? What is your deal?
He says, speaking from the Vandred perspective.
Of course. Oh, that's what you got to do.
So it seems.
That and like don't like force yourself to write a bunch of targets all at once. Because if you have to really search for things to talk about, that you'll like very quickly start to repeat yourself, and it just won't feel like as strong of a character interaction. Because like if you target your entire side of a conversation, then it's not really a conversation. It's like 3 basically canned lines that aren't responding to what the person's responses are. Like I always like to just, you target like on the must strip and then you wait for them to respond, and then you respond to that on the stripping, and then they respond, and then you respond to that on the after stripping, and then they respond. So it's a much more natural dialogue flow, and that's how you get places that can end up in a completely different place than where you started in just 6 lines.
I absolutely disagree with that advice, where it's just like, I think like waiting for people to respond to lines is I don't know. It's like at best tedious. Like I think like going in with like a clear picture of like what you want to say and what you want to like respond is like go talk to the person. Don't just be like, and your character is going to talk about my character's dick. But I absolutely disagree that it's like you should kind of wait for responses. I think you should just go for it. To be quite honest.
100. I 100% disagree.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion.
I know that it's. I try to like keep notes so I know like who I haven't responded to yet. I know that not everyone is going to be good about that, but I just like to just toss them out there and see where it takes me. And like in the meantime, I'll go target someone else. I'll go write generic lines. I'll go work on poses. I feel like you'll get very bored of working on the game if you're kind of like stuck doing the same thing for a character every day.
I don't know. I kind of like that routine personally.
I guess it depends on what your work habits are.
Yeah, I tend to do like, I don't know, like I won't talk too much about my profession, but it's basically, it's like at the end of the day, it's like when I come home and work on SPNatI stuff, it's nice because it's like fairly routine. But yeah, I think like there's a lot of good takes, but honestly, like to me, the things that make characters interesting are just like, does this take advantage of the medium of this being a crossover game in a way that like I couldn't just do in like fan art, like classical fan art. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it. SPNanon, you kind of expanded a lot on that, but do you have any like anything else you want to lead up with?
I think I got most of it. I mean, really, like you say, what makes for strong interactions as a writer? I think a player could enjoy those as well. It's just that like that's really stimulating as a writer to be like, yes, I can finally launch into my character's personality and background. Like it actually feels like you're writing dialogue for once and not really weird canned monologue that's like kind of targeted at someone else. Like you feel like you're writing for an actual show. You know what I mean? Like you feel like you're writing actual fiction for once. Not this weird stilted performance where you're trying to like convey their character.
Fair enough.
I mean, that's what people like most of the time is writing targeted lines, and writing generic lines is so difficult and kind of strange in comparison that a lot of people don't get past that point. So just anything that can really allow you to flex your dialogue muscles in a more natural way.
Flex those dialogue kegels.
Okay, you didn't have to go straight to Kegels, but
I did though.
Just nmasp with the dirty mind.
Yeah, deal with
Fuck
it.
shit, bitch, cunt, asshole.
I came here to fuck bitches and write porn. Not really.
You sound very tired.
I'm really, really tired. It's been.
Do you need more weed?
Of all the things in this world that I need, more marijuana is not one of them.
No, we got 2 questions left. You got to hang in there.
I know. We're good.
At least this isn't one of the 5-hour podcasts where we had 20
If
questions.
you start talking about Sonic the Hedgehog, I'm just gonna fucking leave. Okay, so Cog, actually, the next question is really
I played
interesting.
Sonic Unleashed recently, and I was really disappointed.
I hope you drink bleach. So Cog, let's
Drinking bleach is way past cool.
Shut your mouth.
Blaze the Cat is best girl.
Blaze the Cat. She's just Mia. She's just furry Mia. That's all.
Why
she is.
the fuck do you think she's best girl?
Oh
That's
my
why.
god.
It's just May's persona.
Pretty much, they have like the same character.
Cog,
arc.
not you too. This all hurt.
Have you played it? Or have you just repeated what other people have said?
No, I played Sonic Rush.
Do you disagree?
I do not disagree.
She's like a loner, and she's like super hyper competent, like workaholic, and she doesn't want any friends. And then slowly she starts to appreciate the values of companionship and friendship, mostly with a spunky guy who keeps annoying her, but slowly works his way into her heart, and they become good friends. Oh, it's beautiful.
So Cog. So we talked about the writing perspective, like what makes it easy to write lines and stuff, but as a player, what makes a character compelling? Like what interactions, like not just like the character themselves, like what types of things actually draw you into the character? We see a lot of stuff with like for instance, like Emmy riding on Pitt's shoulders or dual forfeits, stuff like that. Like, but what like as from like a like what would your advice be to writers who are just getting into like heavy interactions with people? What would you think are like good character interactions as a player?
See, here's the thing. This question doesn't have one definitive answer because everyone who plays this game is going to want something different out of these interactions. But from what I've seen, is that the thing that people most tend to gravitate towards are things that are either unique or perhaps pandering a bit. That's not to say that's all they can do, but those tend to be the ones that get like posted to the subres, their own posts, for example.
Interesting. I like this take.
Do you have a different one?
No. I mean, I think to me, it's like actually like, I think as a player, it's like I'm looking for different things as a writer than I am as a player. Like, I think interactions like as a player that are like, oh, this is amusing and this is fun to write to are great. But I think it's like from a player perspective, it has to be stuff that's just like, actually, COG kind of did really hit it out of the park. And I'm trying to be like clever about this answer, but I'm really not. I think to me, it's like things that are like kind of like appeal to me personally, or just like, oh, that's really hot that those characters are doing this thing together, is definitely where I find those things to be really compelling. Like, it doesn't have to be like the characters. Like, I think characters dirty talking each other when it's like specific is really good. Like, I think that's really cool. I think that's like high tier. So that, and I think like,
is that what Natsuki and Amy do?
Do they? Fuck, I don't know. I've gotten to this point in like writing for the game where I don't really remember all the lines I've written. Someone's like, "Wow, this line's like garbage," and I'm like, "Did I write that?" Or it's like, "This line's really good," and I'm like, "I
don't remember any lines I've written."
You could put like a character in front of me and be like, "You wrote this," and I can be like, "I don't think that's true." So, yeah, I guess for me, it's like, yeah. Yeah, that's really it. I think like dirty talk is really compelling and really strong. And honestly, from like the sexy perspective, but I also think it's like in the same way that like being able to write really interesting dialogue is great. I think it's like when two characters interact in a way that's kind of exploits the genre that I really appreciate it. So yeah.
You wrote these questions.
Yeah.
So before we move on to me, why did you make that divide between what's good for writers and what's good for players? Like, why do you think there's a gap there, and how could you bridge the gap?
Well, I think it's like, if I'm being really honest, like playing the game is not the same as writing for it, and I think perspective is really important, because if you, like, a lot of people don't really play the game a lot if you're developing for it, and clearly the reverse is very true, because it's like very few people like end up making the game compared to how many play it, right? Like, this is like empirically true. Like, the game gets about 20,000 plays a day, and clearly we don't have 20,000 authors. So I guess like,
you don't have 20,000 clones yet.
Not yet. I'm working on it though.
We'll get there.
I will. I think that distinction is important, because it's like, what's fun for you to do as a writer is not always fun to do like from a observer perspective, because it's like ultimately we're writing like fan fiction with like some spice to it. And I think there's a lot of, I won't name specifics, but I think there are some characters that are very self-indulgent, but they're not self-indulgent in a way that's like accessible, if that makes sense. Like, for instance, actually I will name names just to kind of, like, for instance, like Amy, right? Like Amy is a good character. Like Amy is my favorite character, but at the same time, it's like there's certain aspects to Amy that are just like stupid and kind of pointless, which I really like, but I don't think are like generally applicable.
She's very meta.
Yeah, so I think it's like something like that is not like for everyone, and I don't think if you're like a general player, it's quite as fun. Or like Solitaire, I'm really sorry about this. Like, I really like Miko as a character, but I'm going to just throw you completely under the bus here. But it's like, Miko's like grandstanding and engagement are obviously very engaging and very fun, but they're not there for like every character, right? So I think like, to me, it's like what's fun for writing purposes versus what's fun for the game can be very different. So that to me is a very important distinction. Yeah.
I think that's fair. But how could you make it closer?
I guess just like as a player, like play the game a little more. Like I think it's like, you have this comment that's like you should write your dirtier lines when you're like thirsty. So to me, my recommendation is like if you're gonna like have like a session for writing and you're not just like dotting things down in like a Word doc on your lunch break, play a game before you start writing and then go from there. Especially with like characters you haven't played before. I think it can really get you in the mindset and get you thinking about like what is actually what people want to see for this character. And for me, I think the interaction perspective is like you have to remember why this character specifically, because it's like Moe Blavism is a real problem. I think it's less of a problem than it used to be in SPNatI, but it's like if you're gonna write like it, like for instance, like if you're gonna write like an embarrassed, like an ENF character, like you gotta really lean into it. Or like if you're writing like a cat boy in a latex suit, understand who your audience for this character is and lean into it. The way that I like to kind of phrase this is it's better to have a character that some people really love than than like most people just kind of like. Because I think that's where you get like your hype and you get really engagement. Like if I say La Rochelle or Amy updates, I'm like fucking over the moon, and just for those characters specifically. But like if I say like I don't know, like an Emmy update, like I love Emmy. I think Emmy's a great character, but like Emmy's not like actually Emmy's even a bad example because I love Emmy updates. I'm trying to think of like a good example for this. Like Jessie. Jessie's like not for me, but I really like Jessie as a character. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make is like when you make your character, know your audience and really lean into them. Like I think Alpha Man is really good at writing Jessie for this reason, because it's like there are people who really don't like Jessie's kind of potential interactions with some other characters, but I think they're really good because they're not designed for us. They're designed for the people who those are interested in, right? Sorry if that kind of rambled, but basically it's like know who you're designing your character for and really, really like pander to them. To be honest,
it's okay to ramble. I don't think this is going to go to 2 hours unless you start me on Sonic the Hedgehog.
So, if you write, Blaze the Cat, you have to remember that Spnanon's your core audience. And
you have to remember that she's a cat, and she's 3 feet tall, so your dick probably can't fit.
Anyway, so that's kind of my thoughts on, like, the, like, player side interactions of that. Just, like, basically, the TLDR, just, like, know who your character is for, and just, like, shamelessly cater to those people. You don't have to have everyone like your character. You do have to have your character, like, be adored by the person it's targeted to. Yeah,
I think that's pretty fair. You had very, very detailed thoughts there. I'd like to build up. I'd like to build off of each of them a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's true that I definitely don't play the game that much, especially compared to like when I first discovered it. Just because you've seen behind the curtain, you see all the gears working. But whenever I do, and like most of the play I do now is for like testing, which almost gives you like a bad impression as a dev because you're seeing characters at their worst. So you have to like file all these bug reports, and it kind of takes you out of it. But every once in a while, I sit down just because like I work on a porn game. I should probably play it every so often. And then I do, and then it starts off, and they're taking off shoes and belts and things. I'm like, oh god, this is boring. Why do I bother? I've wasted my life and years of my life working on this. And then they start to get their tits out. I'm like, all right.
Ah, that's why.
Pretty good. I see why I like this. It's grown on me. So I think with that in mind, there's a couple things, and then I'll come back to this in a second. But first off, it's really easy to look at the character editor and see all the conditions for when a line will play, and have all that context there in front of you. And you have to remember what it's going to look like to someone who's actually playing the game. You know what I mean? Like you have to establish proper context so that they'll understand what they're talking about and who they're talking to, which is something that I think some characters kind of get lost in.
Right.
Or some writers kind of get lost in sometimes. Like whenever it's like a hand line, or like your character is the one who lost So they're the focus of attention. If someone else is targeting them, you need to respond. You need to include the line like, "Oh, that's very interesting, Jesse." So
Right.
Yeah.
so the player doesn't spend, more than a few seconds searching for what the fuck line they're even responding to. I know it, like, you have it right there in front of you, also playing Jesse, but player does not. So make it easy to follow.
Yeah, in the game with dynamic positioning, it's kind of important to make sure that the player can follow along.
Mm-hmm.
Some people do like to kind of predicate their dialogue based on positions. I am not one of those people.
I'm not going to limit my character's potential just because they're to the right of somebody else.
Yeah, I kind of that's sort of where I feel about that. I think it's great if you have that level of attention to detail. I just know I personally do not.
It's like I don't read left to right. I read based on who is the center of attention, and then I go back and look at everybody else's dialogue.
Exactly.
So I don't think that helps all that much, at least for me.
Yeah.
And there's other little things like on a hand line, you also kind of want to address them by name because you could be talking about anything. I try not to let conversations that take place during hand lines go too long because otherwise it gets really hard to follow when there's 4 lines of dialogue in between each one. And if you're responding to something they said in the last round, in the last hand, you kind of want to bring the player back up to speed a bit. So we were talking about this, or you mentioned this, and then you have a question for them. So just little things like that kind of anti-frustration features to just make it easier for the player in general. nmasp kind of mentioned this already, but the whole sex talk angle, that's the thing. We can flex our fan fiction muscles and put all of our deep character moments and gush about how we love this character in the early stages. But you don't want to be talking about crashes and comas and leg amputations towards the later end when everybody's hot and sweaty. So that's the point where I think whatever conversation topics you're bringing up should be more along the lines of body image, or how you see the opposite sex, or what is your romantic life like? Do you have a partner in your home series? Something like that. Or what is your sexual experience? That's something that I think Jessie does pretty well with her prompt markers. Jessie's not for everyone, but the fact that she gets all the characters talking about sex, I know Say does that too, for instance. I try to do that with Maya and Jura. Jura just got a new prompt marker about how she wants to have children, even though she's pretty young. So does anyone else dream about having babies? Because she's all baby crazy. And Maya's have any of you ever dated a man before? And just stuff like that. That's because you don't have to sacrifice character to do that. You're writing interaction still. You're writing a character and their personality still. You're just catering it more towards what this game is.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing. I think that's probably what most people would expect. I want Hermione to talk about relationships with Marinette and see where it goes, as if Hermione has any new lines coming.
I think she does, actually.
Yeah, I guess she does have a rework, but everyone who works on it is pretty quiet. I think that's kind of... I could sit here and fillet myself and be like, Maya is just the most amazing character, and I did such a good job writing her. But I think one of the reasons she's been pretty successful is that I do think she is a legitimately really good character choice for this game, because just the premise of Vandred in general. The only strike against her as a character choice, I think, is that the source material isn't very well known. But just she and Jura are very kind of sex oriented as characters. They have a lot to say about it,
Right.
Because it's all because you take your dick out and they have an immediate interest just because they want to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
And how it works. And they want to ask other characters about it. And what's the deal with men? But they're also lesbians. so they're into the other women. I think that just makes them really strong candidates in general because they can talk about all that stuff fairly easily. So it's just something that, you know, it's appealing for players, and you can still get the writer aspect of it out there where you want to write character for them. You just have to sort of shift the topics more towards the sexual end of the spectrum, and then you'll have something really strong and really appealing. So those are my thoughts. And again, keep it easy to follow.
Yeah, I think that's. I think honestly, like if you're, writer or player, take these things into account, just because it's really easy to kind of get trapped in like the nuance. Like it should be fun, and every line doesn't have to be a winner, but like the theming of your character will help them be as successful as possible. Okay, so kind of last
the final
topic,
question.
Yeah, lightning round. No, just kidding. Cog, are there any in-game interactions you'd expect that don't happen, or ones that you wish there were more of? So it's kind of a double question, and I phrased it really poorly. So, congrats. Yeah, any in-game interactions you would expect that aren't there, or ones that you like and would see more of?
I think this is more of on a case by case basis, but
sure.
More stuff that's like more themed. So characters that like, let me just use an example, like use bows. Like characters like Shamir and Bernadetta would have dialogue towards like Pit, for example.
Ooh, that is interesting.
Or like characters like Union or Supernova would have lines to like Larshell. So characters who have like a very relevant connecting thread, but don't really have much conversations with one another. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I feel that. I think that is a really big. I think that's a really big kind of weakness where it's just like that is something that I would really like to see more of, but it can be hard to like, as a writer, kind of know those things. But I think that it's like Sheena, for instance, like Sheena and Marinette, I think talk about like yo-yos at some point because one of the people in like Tales of Symphonia uses like a yo-yo as a weapon. I think it's actually Kodama, I think like that sort of stuff is like really kind of classical Poker Night at the Inventory that I would personally love to see more of. Like I definitely feel you on that. And what would you like? What kind of stuff do you like to see? Is it the same category for you, or like what's some stuff that like do you think the game does really well that you like to see?
I think it's more or less that same sort of stuff where I sort of talked about this earlier, but where characters can like mutually build off each other to become like more fleshed out than their canon incarnates.
Ooh, I do really like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I think characters like Maya do a really good job of that.
In what way?
Where you like ask questions and people respond, and you use it to like shape the character in ways that the original series never went to.
Well, okay, I don't try to like make up complete bullshit.
Well, yeah,
it's more like there's a tiny little hint of what it might be like, and I extrapolate.
Right, extrapolation.
Like there's a couple lines or shots that kind of imply that a lot of like girls on Majer have like birds as pets.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, what? Really? I've like never noticed this.
Well, no, in the show itself.
Oh, okay, got it.
Like there's people evacuating a civilian district, and one of the shots is like a bird cage that's been like emptied out, and like one of the characters mentions she had a bird when she was a girl, and I kind of extrapolate from that. It's like, well, okay, if they're trying to establish like an all-woman society, they probably wouldn't have a lot of like mammals running around, because you wouldn't want to have like your male dog fucking your female dog and then have all the people wondering, oh, why aren't there any male humans?
Right.
But if everyone has a bird, then it's not as obvious, and they're like sufficiently different from us. Like, oh yeah, well they have a male.
I see.
Yeah,
the cloaca, if you would.
Yeah. So I kind of take that as like, well, they probably don't have too many civilian animals as like pets. They might just have birds. and that sort of thing.
That's like a surprisingly well thought out detail, but like weirdly specific, and I totally get it.
Well, you just have to,
yeah.
A lot of the shit probably is like in novelizations, or they just, it's just the kind of shit you couldn't fit into like a 26, episode series.
Right.
And you could explore that if you're like a long running television show. But I think that's I don't know if that was just unintentional on their part or what, but it makes sense that they wouldn't have like more typical domesticated animals. They wouldn't have like dogs and cats. And also like the whole planet's not like completely terraformed, I think. So, how well could they really sustain like larger animals like that?
Right.
So it's just, so every once in a while, Mayo will just bring up, I had a bird as a girl, or, there's not a lot of animals on Majera. I don't recognize a lot of them, or stuff like that. I try not to like have them liken things or like use metaphors that kind of involve animals too much. So it's just stuff like that. There's a tiny little seed that the show planted, and I grow it into a tree. The tree is my dick.
I see. Oh. The tree is always your dick, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm just gonna completely butt in there. Did you or Cog have anything to add?
I think that's kind of like, honestly, Cog sums it up. I guess like for me, the things I really like to see are, a lot of things we've talked about like earlier. I think also just like characters from different media being like really interested in each other, just like, and either becoming friends or like banging is always pretty cool. So that's the kind of, and as far as like stuff I'd like to see more of, like I think Cog really hit it out of the park with the knowing your archers are going to do stuff together. Actually, I think that's something that's like tag based interactions or something really cool. Like I think there's a few characters, or like a lot of characters, that'll be like, oh, I'm playing on a table with girls wearing glasses. What's the deal with that? Or like, everyone here's in a school uniform. What's your problem, player? You pervert.
You kind of moved away from the mic there.
Sorry. Basically, like I think
Solitaire, just kind of boost him right there, so it looks like I'm talking nonsense.
I am indeed a boosted animal, but stuff that's like based on like tags.
Just add Blaze the Cat all over this podcast.
Oh, please don't.
Just have her everywhere.
Please
Any
don't.
glory shots of her you can find.
Put like a diagram with a cloaca during the previous conversation if you're going to add Blaze the Cat, just because, I don't know. So those are the things that I'd like to see more of. Like, I think like filtered lines are just like the kind of secret gold in like future-proofing your characters, but like having stuff that's based on like, oh shit, like everyone here has blue hair, or some shit like that is always really interesting. Especially because now you can actually combine like multiple filters when targeting. I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah, like I think when all of us started out, filters were a lot less powerful in general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now you can target literally like the exact kind of clothing they're taking off,
right?
As the guy who really wants to remind us that belts hold up pants will assert.
Yeah, like that is like such a specific, like very outspoken need of some people. Like it's just like, or trinket. Like I think,
hey man, I'm not that fat.
What? No, I'm not talking. No, I'm just like, I think like people that are like, oh, trinkets aren't this thing. There's like some very specific like bug reports, and it's like, it's not like I'm just like making fun of someone for like being specific, but I'm just like, this is like such a interesting like thing to fixate on.
For some people, that just really breaks their immersion, I guess.
I guess so, yeah.
Which I've never been that exacting with my smutty Rule 34 internet games, but I guess that's the kind of standard that we've risen to, that people would expect that.
It's just like, suck my balls. It's just like, well, how do they know they have balls? You didn't know before they took the.
You can't assume balls just because it's a male character, because we have bi.
God.
You can only assume that they have a dick.
Just balls, no dick.
Is there a filter like no balls? We could just put it on bi.
No, because it's only like one character. Learn the lore.
Old Billy No Balls. That was his name in school.
Bi is short for Billy. Today I learned.
Yeah. You know, one fateful day in the gym locker room just changed his life forever. Anyway, I guess I should answer this question so we can all go home.
Yeah, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So we can all go to bed. I think it's mostly what I talked about in the previous question, where I feel like a lot of writers they perceive this divide too, where you have like the really character lines and then you have like the sexual lines, and like they don't mix. Like you can't have both. And I don't think that's true. Like I'd like to see, and I'd like to write personally, because I could do a better job with this as well. But I'd like to write more interactions where the characters are talking about just general sexual topics. I guess people feel like they're reaching more with the characters there, so they feel less comfortable, or they just personally feel less comfortable talking about like sexual topics. But just, I mean, you're doing it by proxy. Like, just go nuts. Relationships and body image and all this stuff that you can really expand upon. That's what I'd like to see more of. Anything other than that, I think, is just kind of fluff. Like, yeah, you could say like dual forfeits or joint poses, which are good, but at a certain point they become kind of indulgent. Like some characters do them really well, like Mihiru, who are kind of naturally suited to it, but others it feels a little forced. So I'd say, just go for the simple stuff. Just go for the dirty talk. And not even dirty talk, but just like casual conversation about sexual topics. Like, where else can you really do that? Around the water cooler?
Yeah, I feel you.
So I was fucking my wife last night.
Yeah.
And suddenly she starts making these noises like an animal. Freaked me out.
Were those noises like Blaze the Cat noises? Because I think that's just part of your routine.
Blaze the Cat talks like a human.
Well, she talks like a human, but
once she starts purring.
So in the next podcast,
Solitaire, just put some censored Blaze the Cat Rule 34.
Oh, please don't.
Up on the screen. Just put some Chaos Emeralds around the censored parts.
I appreciated I think like the best shit post we've seen is just like Bernie, like Bernadetta Fire Emblem, getting like Bernie Sanders censored. That was fantastic.
Solitaire, just add in whatever jokes you want. I mean, it's only like an hour long.
Yeah. Hey, Cog. So any closing remarks that you'd like to make on the topics today, or just anything in general? Any shout outs you want to do? Any development related work? Anything you're excited about?
On the Sleepycast?
Yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm tired. It's just been a lot of things.
Oh, I'm tired too. We had some pretty intense, kind of high energy episodes. So I think, it's nice to have a little bit of a slower one.
Yeah, I'm just excited to be coming back and need to work on this game again.
Yeah, I'm excited to see you.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, Cog, we missed you. It's good to have you back.
You've been here longer than either of us.
I've been here since the beginning, pretty much.
Yep. It's good to see you, continuing to work on it, though.
We'll see if we can get some stuff going between our characters.
I would like that a lot. That sounds fun.
Absolutely.
Especially because, Marinette and Adrien have a lot to talk to, Alyssa about, just because the fashion angle is, primo.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm looking forward to that. And also just La Rochelle in general. Yes. La Rochelle, yes.
Just have, La Rochelle and Amy interact with each other in dirty talk and just watch Namask dick explode.
I can't, please.
If Marshall came out for sponsorship now, I'd probably make a nmasp bait table.
Oh.
We're gonna make I don't know, you're gonna see in the the local news of where Namask lives, which I won't dox him on here, but it's just local man's dick explodes, laid up in hospital. Local entrepreneur's dick explodes.
I'm actually not running my own company anymore, believe it or not. So.
Oh F, but cause thought to be related to browser-based Rule 34 internet crossover game.
It's actually the government's fault. It's kind of a joke that I'm some big anarcho-capitalist, but it's actually the government's fault that I couldn't run my company anymore. And I'm still mad about it because it's just
what do you think about the Bureau of Land Management?
I mean, they're a terrorist organization. Like, we don't need a Bureau of Land Management. People should just be able to kind of like, you can have what you can hold and call it a day at that.
What you can defend.
Yeah, it's just like, if you can't protect your cattle, like, you don't deserve to have them. Rules of nature.
I think you would have done well in the Oregon Trail times as a cattle thief.
Or just like, I don't know. I think like in the Oregon Trail times, I would have just like immediately been like murdered for being like for not speaking English the second I came to America. Actually, I could have spoken Spanish. No, I couldn't. But anyway, I guess just sometimes I'm like, yeah, if I were born like the 1800s, I could have been like a robber baron. Then I'm like, no, I couldn't have. I'm not like Elon Musk now, so I probably wouldn't have been back then anyway. So that's kind of my closing remarks, Cog. Good to have you back. Looking forward to seeing you. Please have Amy and Larshell target each other infinitely so I can just like never play any other characters ever again. Yeah, good talk. spnanon, any closing remarks besides like more soliciting Solitaire to put Blaze the Cat into the podcast?
Sure, specifically it's Blaze. Well, start off with just like the promotional art and then slowly move into Rule 34.
Cool.
Despite my avowed love for Blaze the Cat, I am not a furry.
That's what they all say.
It's mostly it's because she's Maya. Like Maya's more important in this relationship.
I have like when we're like done recording, I have like a really, really weird aside. But anyway.
Are you sure you don't want to just air out your dirty laundry on a public
No,
recording?
this particular topic I don't want on the podcast. But anyway, hey, thanks for listening.
All right, Solitaire, make sure you edit this in.
Yeah, hey everyone, thanks for listening.
I'll just forget to make Craig stop recording.
Yeah, sounds good. So see you in about see everyone in about 2 weeks. If you have some topics you'd like for us to cover on the next cast, just comment in the channel, and we'll be happy to make some adjustments. And
or if you'd like to come on.
Yeah, that too. We'd love to have you.
So yeah, nice shorter, snappier podcast episode. This is probably going to become more the rule than the exception.
Do you love talking about hentai with strangers on the internet? Do you hate sitting down for 2 hours at a time?
nmasp, we're all Western people here. It's not hentai.
Oh.
When are we going to get some Japanese developers?
That would actually be fascinating. It's just like, I don't know. I'd love to see someone just be like, SPNatI does not speak authentic Japanese. Napsu, you fucking like fake Asian.
Let's get Moyashi to develop for the game.
Well, it is quite the language barrier.
Itadakimasu. Anyway, all right. Good night, everyone.
Yes. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, so now that Craig has stopped recording, I'm just gonna confess to several crimes right now.
Craig's still fucking recorded. You're full of shit.
So in May of 2005, this it's okay to ramble. I don't think this is gonna go to 2 hours unless you start me on Sonic the Hedgehog.
So if you write Blaze the Cat, you have to remember that SPNanon's your core audience, and
you have to remember that she's a cat. And she's 3 feet tall, so your dick probably can't fit.
I've seen a lot of things on Aiko, so I don't know.
On the plus side, she'd probably really like your dick if it did fit, because it doesn't have barbs like a male cat's penis.
Or would she? Or would that be just disappointing for her?
I don't know.
Are
cats into the whole barbs thing? Barbed for her pleasure?
I don't know. Wow, I actually
we need to get a cat on this podcast. Ask the hard questions.
Fucking Carol Baskin.
That reference escapes me.
Neither of you watched Tiger King, did you?
No.
I did not.
Okay. Oh, you gotta go watch Tiger King.
I don't take a fascination with like disgusting weird people.
God, go watch Tiger King. It's so good. it is like the best, trashiest documentary I've ever seen. It's so fucking good.
nmasp, did you watch Honey Boo Boo back in the day?
No, because I have self-respect. # free.
Are you sure? Because you're watching Tiger King.
Tiger King's great. It's just like, anyway, just Tiger King. It's I don't know.
Give me the too long didn't watch.
The too long didn't watch is gay Texan seduces straight men with crystal meth and tigers while conniving sociopath tries to steal his livelihood.
That sounds like a porno title.
It's not porn. It's definitely not porn. And if it was, you wouldn't want to watch it. But as a documentary, it's pretty good.